Coming up on today's show, a couple on their way to Portland get themselves into a little bit of a pickle in the new horror release, The Strangers, Chapter 1. Stay tuned. Welcome to Scary World, where we walk you through the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I am your host, Arturo Padilla.
Hi.
For those of you just joining us, don't forget to subscribe up above and say what's up down below. Remember, folks, we have one major rule around here: no spoilers. Now that we got that out of the way, there are 5 categories: production, story, ensemble, horror, and legacy. Each category can score up to 2 points.
Showtime.
Per IMDb, the synopsis goes, after their car breaks down in an eerie small town, a young couple is forced to spend the night in a remote cabin. Panic ensues as they are terrorized by 3 masked strangers who strike with no mercy and seemingly no motive. This movie was directed by Renny Harlin, who previously had directed movies like Deep Blue Sea, Cliffhanger, Die Hard 2, and Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Here on this production, Harlan showcases his experience and talent behind the camera. The movie looks good. Everything is coherent and shot well. Unfortunately, this movie lacks where its predecessor succeeded, especially in the vibes and the tone. It does a really poor job of setting that eerie vibe we are used to with this Strangers franchise. On top of that, there's no great use of nighttime sequences. In fact, the lighting in most of the exterior night shots are just terrible. I don't know what they were thinking in terms of lighting the night in this movie. It doesn't have the same impact or effect as it does in the other 2 previous installments of The Strangers. Aside from the poor lighting of all the night sequences, the movie has very generic sound editing. The most we get here are very loud bangs, but it doesn't make use of the premise. As we saw in 2008 Strangers, they make great use of the sound editing, and they made sure that they built up their suspense and their terror using that sound editing. In this movie, we don't really get that. And we also don't get those needle drops that we got in the second one. Prey at Night had very excellent use of needle drops, and it worked very well. Supremely well in that movie, I should say, actually. But here, it doesn't have the same effect. They do their best to make sure they do a little bit more than the 2008 one did with the needle drops there. In the original one, there's about maybe just 1 or 2 songs that just play, but they make good use of that stuff by making sure they edit that sound well, and it works for those sequences in 2008. But in this movie, it doesn't have the same impact, and it really shows. It's really unfortunate because they do some good things, but then they forget to fix some other things. And that goes along for our next segment too. But with the production, at least the movie looks coherent. As I said, it looks visually good on the screen. I am a little concerned about their lack of lighting, or lack thereof of proper lighting in the night sequences, especially when we first see the Tamara gimmick being used.
Is Tamara here?
No.
I think you have the wrong home.
It's very apparent that they're trying to just completely black out this character because there's a lot of light coming from the inside of that house, and it should be able to light the front of this doorstep, but it doesn't. And that is very poor lighting choices. They could have easily moved the character back a little bit more, and just giving them a nice little glint of a light shadow. It was just really disappointing to see how poorly they lit those sequences. And for getting this movie to look good on the screen, this movie, Strangers Chapter 1, gets a 1 for production. The script was written by first-time feature writers Alan Cohen and Alan Freeland. They both came from the TV world, having written episodes for The Nanny, King of the Hill, and American Dad, just to name a few. This script that they've written for this movie is very rough, folks. The story is rough. The pacing is slow. The acts don't hit well. It's essentially the same movie as 2008. They do manage to properly build tension throughout the story though, but they failed to fix all the other problems of the original story. Nothing new or innovative was done in this iteration, and they have the unmitigated gall, these two, to make 2 more movies. I'm good. I don't care for the story here at all. I think the story was very lazy. The sequels that they wanted to write for this thing, I'm just confused as to how they can greenlight other sequels for this after this comes out. The sequels are not earned by any means at all. This story is not good. There's a lot of lazy writing in this movie, and it shows. This story has a lot of problems. They try and remake the 2008 movie, but they do it so terribly. Legit, it's a carbon copy of '08, but with everything done even worse. As you guys saw the Scary World episode for the original Strangers movie, the story had its issues, but it did make it up in certain other ways. This story, there's no redeeming qualities to be taken away from this movie at this point. It's a total disappointment in terms of what we got script-wise. It's very lazy writing. It's very amateur writing. And for this very poorly written story, this movie gets a 0 for this category. They did a terrible job with this script, folks. The cast and the characters are another detriment to this story. All the characters are poorly written and underdeveloped. The writers added a weird awkwardness to the people of the town, which was very off-putting and unnecessary, and on top of that, it has no payoff.
Tough crowd, right?
I don't understand why they decided to go that direction. Everyone in the town is acting very suspect, very guilty, very non-friendly, and for no reason. There's no reason whatsoever to do that. It's unnecessary. They all act like they're covering something up here. I don't know if that's something we find out in chapter 2 or 3, but I don't want to get there based off this first story. I think they should have definitely done a better job fleshing out this town if they were going to make it such a part of the movie the way they did. As mentioned, it's a very low-hanging fruit approach to writing that these guys had, and I don't understand why they thought that was a good idea. The only thing I do have to say here before we get out of this segment is that I do have to commend actress Madeleine Petsch, who plays Maya.
Is Tamara here? No. We already told you there is no Tamara here.
One of the protagonists in this movie, and she does a really nice job at the end of the 3rd act. She really shined, and I think it was a waste of a talent to not give her a much meatier, chunkier, better developed character. She really shined at the end and really showcased what she is capable of and what she can do. It is just a shame that this crew did not take advantage of that talent. The other characters and actors were really just very run-of-the-mill generic, very average, nothing really to call home about. But Madeleine Petsch did do a good job with her character, and that has to be commended. And for the hard work that Madeleine Petsch put in as her character Maya, this movie gets a 1 for Ensemble. This is the only reason there is a 1 here, because of her hard work in this movie. You can tell she really wanted to bring it home here. It's just a shame that her character wasn't good. That's squarely what it is. The characters were so poorly written that it didn't really give the actors a chance to shine here. She had to take it, and she had to find the moment to really and truly show what she was capable of, and she did. And this is the only reason why this category comes out with any score. Like the original from 2008, this one doesn't have much in the way of blood, gore, and kills. In fact, it's fairly similar in bloody content. Fans of the original movie will notice after they watch this that it is going to be pretty much exactly the same. Same body count, same type of gore, same type of kills. Not much new is done here, unfortunately. Unlike the original, this one doesn't really have a bite. The original one at least had those moments where they can actually spook you and scare you. This one does do tension a little bit better than the first one, but I feel that it does the tension well, but it doesn't do the bite well. The first one at least did a better job at making sure they captivated you with that bite. The claim of brutal is also made in the title card, and what we get is the complete opposite from that, honestly. I've seen brutality, I've seen violent movies. This really isn't it. What I do have to give it credit for is building that tension that I wanted from the one in 2008. They actually do a very good job of making sure that you feel that same angst that these characters are going through. And for that, they do have to be commended. The third act, just like the original, is also very good. I do wish that they would have done something a little bit different to spice things up a little bit. But this is what we got here, folks. And for the successfully built tension we get throughout the movie, The Strangers Chapter 1 gets a 1 for horror. I really like what they did in that aspect. I was missing that from 2008, as I mentioned before. And as I mentioned in the previous episode, when we did cover The Strangers 2008, I felt that they didn't have that emotional tension that you needed to really kind of get you through. This movie does that, but then it really kind of undersells everything else, unfortunately. And that's the real downfall here. This movie was mediocre and it was unnecessary. The fact that they have more coming down the pipeline this year is concerning and very unwarranted. They should have made more of an effort to try and make Chapter 1 watchable before trying to continue this very underwhelming story. Folks, this was not good. And the fact that they want to do 2 more of these in the same calendar year is very problematic. And I feel that it is not going to be good. If you can't show me what you really want to show me in Chapter 1, how do you expect me to get to Chapter 2 properly? As I've been mentioning throughout the entire review, this movie is pretty much like 2008, except much worse. The characters are way worse. The characters around our protagonists are just terrible. The supporting characters in the town are very poorly written and very poorly acted and directed. I don't know what they were thinking when they told these people to just be weird and awkward. It's not a good look. I don't want to see a Chapter 2 in theaters. I hope it comes out on VOD, because if this is what they have in store for us, count me out. I'm good. And for the poor story, the poor characters, the non-innovative use of story, this movie gets a 0 for legacy. So to tally it up, The Strangers Chapter 1 received a 1 for production, a 0 for story, a 1 for ensemble, a 1 for horror, and a 0 for legacy, bringing the total score up to 3. As we like to say on the morgue, folks, stay away from it. This was not good. Go watch the 2008 original Strangers if you really want to watch this movie, because that's exactly what you get here, but to a lower quality standard, unfortunately. And that is not what you want. Stay away from this one, folks. Don't watch it. Instead, go on Max and go watch The Strangers Pray at Night, the best this franchise has to offer. Unlike this one, which is the worst this franchise has to offer.
Can you tell me what time it is?
And that's a wrap, folks. Thank you for watching Scary World. Don't forget to drop a comment down below and hit the thumbs up on the video. Most importantly, do not forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tell all your friends, your family, and their pets to come on down to CorpseFeed and subscribe. We have spoiler-free horror movie reviews for you guys dropping every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We also have the official CorpseFeed podcast, The Morgue, dropping every Tuesday wherever you get your podcast streams. Stay tuned for that one for all the spoilers that we don't do here. We are also on all the social platforms. Go check us out there. Go like, subscribe, and share. We are there. We will see you on Monday for another episode. And remember, it's a scary world out there, but we are here to walk you through it.